Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
I knew the exact moment I became nothing in my own home. It was 6:03 in the morning, and the sun was only a hint of pale orange beyond the window. I stood by the stove, stirring oatmeal, half asleep, half annoyed by how early it was. Our kitchen lights cast a dull glow across the granite countertop. Madison was still upstairs, or so I believed. I kept messing with the oats, trying to ignore a chill that crawled along my neck, a feeling that something wasn't right. I felt it like static in the air. Then I heard a soft squeak outside the back door, like someone stepping on the porch but trying not to. A soft thump, then another. I didn't move at first. I thought maybe it was an animal or just the wind shifting the old boards. But my instincts said, this is different. So I peered through the window. There he was, a man, barefoot, except for black socks, standing in my backyard. He had that look on his face, shock, guilt, and something else I couldn't name. His hair was disheveled. He wore only a shirt and jeans undone at the waist. My heart hammered. He locked eyes with me through the glass. I could see him thinking, does he see me? Does he realize I exist? And I felt like I'd walked into a nightmare. Yes, I saw him. I saw everything. But I couldn't speak. The breath caught in my throat. It was just a few seconds, him and me staring at each other. Then he turned and ran. He bolted across the yard, stumbling on the damp grass, sprinting past our fence. He vanished down the alley. And in that instant, I became less than a husband, less than a man. Because I knew exactly why he was there, creeping around like a thief who'd stolen something he was never meant to touch. I remember inhaling, trying to call out, but the sound wouldn't come. My lips parted, and I just stood there, gripping the handle of the spoon until it left deep marks in my palm. Something inside me froze, like my mind had slammed on the brakes. It was humiliating, though no words were spoken yet. Right there, in my own house, with the smell of oatmeal thick in the air, I was confronted by what I'd always dreaded but never truly believed. I was being deceived. By my wife. By the woman I thought I understood, that I'd built a life with. And I was powerless, just a guy in sweats, stirring breakfast for the two of us, about to find out everything was a lie. Time slowed. I heard the quiet bubble of the oatmeal, the faint tick of the clock above the fridge. I stared at the backyard, half expecting him to reappear, maybe to say, hey man, sorry, it's not what you think. But no, I was alone. Alone in my own home. And that's when the first wave of panic surged. Short breaths, heart pounding in my ears. My cheeks felt scalding hot. I reached out to turn off the stove. My hand was shaking. I set the spoon on the counter, noticing how my knuckles had turned white. The silence was thick and punishing. I realized the cereal pot could spill over, but I didn't care. Because what did it matter if my life was already overspilling with something vile? Then I heard Madison's footsteps upstairs, soft at first, then heavier, like she was rushing around. And it struck me. She's in a hurry. Why? She's up early. Why? My mind churned, searching for an innocent explanation. But there was none. Because I'd seen him. A living, breathing piece of undeniable evidence. And his presence just a few feet outside my kitchen window said it all. I stepped away from the stove, drifted toward the hallway that leads to the stairs. My bare feet pressed against the cold tile. My heartbeat was so loud I was sure she could hear it from upstairs. Step by step, I moved without thinking. Then she appeared at the top of the steps, wearing a rumpled men's button-down shirt I recognized too well. It was the one I'd given her 3 years ago in Colorado, my birthday present to her after we spent an unforgettable weekend in the mountains. She used to wear it to bed sometimes, especially when she wanted to feel close to me. Now it clung to her body, and the first thought in my head was that maybe she just grabbed it from the closet. Or maybe... No, my mind stammered, refusing to complete the thought. She walked down, hair still mussed from sleep, or something else. I noticed she wasn't wearing any pants, just that shirt, unbuttoned 2 notches too many. My mouth went dry. She saw me but didn't say good morning. Instead, she made a show of patting her pockets, like she was searching for something. Her eyes flickered around, not quite meeting mine. "Have you seen my phone?" she asked, voice raspier than usual. I stared at her, wanting to speak but failing. My tongue felt like lead. I glanced at the kitchen counter, where her phone was. The screen was lit up with a text message. I recognized the first line. "I'm not giving it to my husband." "But you can." The letters burned into my eyes, scorching away any last illusions. That was it. That was the moment. The final bullet. I slid the phone toward her. She snatched it, looked at the screen, then her eyes darted to me. She parted her lips, but no words came out. We stood there, tension twisting in the air. She pressed the phone to her chest, like she thought she could hide the evidence. But it was too late. All I managed to say was, "It's still warm outside. You might find him if you hurry." She didn't respond. She just turned away. And in her silence, in the set of her shoulders, I heard the truth. He had been here, in our home. And I was, what? Just the leftover occupant. I wanted to explode, to scream, to fling the pot of oatmeal across the room. Instead, I swallowed. Something hollow formed in my chest, a wordless ache. Then I turned around and left, didn't even change from my sweatpants. Just grabbed my sneakers, shoved my feet in, and walked out the front door without looking back. I ran that night. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I ran like a man possessed, the streets of Denver flickering under the sparse streetlights. My pulse hammered in my temples, each step slamming the pavement. It was more than just running. It felt like if I stopped, the pain would eat me alive. So I didn't. Mile after mile until my lungs burned and my legs shook. For a while I felt nothing but exhaustion. Then the exhaustion gave way to a new emptiness. It was an emotional free fall. I couldn't even muster anger, just a raw, vacant space inside. She must have thought I'd come back once I'd cooled off. I never did. I drifted for months, crashing at motels, occasionally taking out-of-state jobs as a freelance fitness consultant. Drove to old college buddies' places in Montana, made enough money to keep me afloat, slept on couches or in my car. My phone was off half the time. People asked about Madison. I usually said, "We're separated," and changed the subject. I couldn't stand the pity in their eyes. Couldn't endure the well-intentioned, "Oh man, I'm sorry," or "I never thought she'd do that." All that did was remind me I was the fool who didn't see it coming. Time slid by, overshadowed by a haze of running, working, sleeping, repeating. That first year, I had nightmares almost every night. Her silhouette in that Colorado shirt, a faceless man creeping around. I'd wake up gasping, convinced I heard footsteps in the hallway. In the mirror each morning, I saw a man older than his 39 years, with sunken eyes and a haunted expression. And I'd wonder, is that me now? Is that what's left? 3 years have come and gone since the day I first saw him in my backyard. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. Other times it's like I blinked and everything was over. Now, ironically, I find myself passing through Denver again. Work. Another short-term contract, training a corporate group for a big event. They want a motivational speaker, a running coach, and apparently my name floated to the top of someone's list. I guess I'm good at what I do. The difference is, I'm not the same Daniel Hayes who used to care about home, about marriage. I'm a runner. That's all. I keep going so I don't have to think. It's become an addiction. My body is leaner, my eyes colder. Once I left behind the man who stirred oatmeal at 6 in the morning, I never looked back. Because that man was weak. That man believed in something that turned out to be a lie. I arrived in Denver yesterday. Rented a small apartment near the city center to stay for a month. I told myself I wouldn't go near our old house, but I did. Couldn't help it. Some destructive curiosity drove me there, just to see if everything was the same. The paint is more faded. The yard is neglected. But the house still stands, like a silent monument to everything I lost. I parked a block away, under an oak tree that used to blaze gold in autumn. Now it's mid-spring, leaves just budding. I got out, walked up the sidewalk, half expecting her to fling open the door, half hoping she'd be gone, that no memory would be left to haunt me. But there she was, Madison, standing near the backyard fence. I saw her before she saw me. She had that same old posture, slim figure, hair pulled into a messy bun, arms folded across her chest. She wore socks that looked suspiciously like the ones I left behind. It made me sick to my stomach, seeing her in them. Another twisted reminder of our old life. I should have kept walking, but something in me refused. I approached. She must have heard my footsteps because she spun around. Her eyes got huge. She opened her mouth but said nothing. It was that awkward stillness we had the last time I looked in her eyes. She managed to whisper, "Daniel." I stared past her, at the patch of grass where the other man had run away so long ago. It was almost funny, like time had looped back on itself. Only now, the roles were reversed. I felt no shock or heartbreak, just a deep, low burn of contempt. She took a shaky breath. I didn't think you'd ever come back to this side of town. I forced out a noise, something like a chuckle. I didn't come for you, I said, letting every ounce of bitterness lace my words. Work assignment. That's all. She bit her lip. Her eyes were red-rimmed, as though she'd been crying or not sleeping well. I wished I could feel pity, but all I felt was the memory of my humiliation, coiling inside me like an old wound that never quite healed. "You look different," she ventured, voice trembling. "Harder." I shrugged. "Guess that's what betrayal does." Her eyes flickered with regret or guilt or something. She turned to face the house, blinking back tears. "I've tried writing you letters. I left messages, begged you to meet, just once, to talk. I need you to hear." "Hear what?" I snapped, stepping forward. Another apology. Another lie. She pressed her lips together. "I'm sorry," she managed, so softly I almost didn't catch it. "I know it's too late, but I hate myself for what I did. And I can't function, not knowing if you'll ever forgive me." I looked at her, really looked. Her hair had new streaks of color, maybe from the stress. Her once pristine nails were chipped. She wore no makeup that I could see. The lines of her face were sharper, older. She looked so small. For a split second, the memory of the girl I married flickered in my mind, smiling, bright-eyed, wearing my ring with pride. Then it vanished. "You want forgiveness," I repeated, clenching my jaw. "You think that sets everything right, that you can just say sorry and we go back." Her gaze dropped to the ground. "No, not back. I know that's impossible. But maybe we could. Stop." My voice was cold, final. I was done. All those nights of sleepless anguish, all those miles I ran to outrun the image of her with someone else. She had no idea what that cost me. She never would. A rustling sound from the house's side door caught my attention. For a heartbeat, I wondered if it was him. Jay, the man I'd spotted in the yard. My blood spiked with a fury so intense it almost toppled me. But the door creaked shut with no sign of life. Maybe he was gone, or maybe he just wasn't around. The specifics didn't matter. If he showed his face, I might not hold back. Madison noticed my reaction, saw how my fists tightened. "He's not here," she murmured. "He left a year ago. Actually, he left me." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Everyone leaves me in the end." I should have felt something of that. Satisfaction. Relief. Anger. But I felt oddly hollow, like a man who's walked in a desert so long he no longer cares about thirst. I breathed out, turned away. "Go inside, Madison. There's nothing left for me here." She nodded slowly, tears trailing down her cheeks. But I didn't wait. I walked back to my car, ignoring the swirl of emotions. My heart thundered with so many conflicting feelings, I couldn't pick them apart. I got behind the wheel, pulled away from the curb, and didn't look in the rearview mirror. That night, I hardly slept. Instead, I laced up my running shoes and jogged through quiet city streets, letting the neon signs and occasional headlights wash over me. The memory of seeing her wore on my nerves. She seemed so broken. I wasn't sure if that was part of her real regret or another performance. Maybe she truly was sorry. Maybe she was sorry because her boy toy moved on and left her with an empty bed. I didn't know, didn't care. All that mattered was I'd left that life behind. It wasn't mine anymore. When dawn came, I found myself outside an all-night diner. My legs ached, but I hardly noticed. I stepped inside, ordered black coffee, drank it in silence. In the reflection of the diner's window, I spotted the deep lines in my own face. My hair was longer now, a bit of gray at the temples. The man staring back at me looked worn down, but there was a harshness in his eyes that I'd never had before. A readiness to do something drastic, if pushed. After finishing my coffee, I headed to the apartment. A phone call awaited me. The corporate liaison I'd be working with wanted to finalize the training schedule. I forced myself into professional mode, arranged everything, took a shower, tried to forget that my old house was just a few miles away. By 9 a.m., I was sitting at a pristine conference table, shaking hands with well-dressed executives who all smiled politely and called me coach. If only they knew how ragged my soul felt. Asterisk things escalated a few days later. I finished an early session at the corporate gym, sweat still cooling on my skin, and stepped outside into the bright Denver sun. That's when I saw her again. Madison, leaning against my car. She looked out of place in that steel and glass environment, wearing worn jeans and a simple blouse. She gave me a tentative smile that faded the second she saw my face. I approached, scanning for employees or bystanders. "What are you doing here?" My tone was sharper than I intended. She swallowed hard, eyes flickering with insecurity. I wanted to see you. To talk. You won't pick up my calls. You won't answer my messages. Because there's nothing to say." She reached out like she might touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Daniel, please. I know I can't fix what I did. But I just want to explain." I sighed. My fists tightened reflexively. Then I forced them to relax. "Explain what?" "That you got bored of me. That you wanted something else." "There's no explanation that changes what happened." She closed her eyes, face contorting with anguish. It wasn't boredom. I was going through a crisis. I got lost in the attention. Jay made me feel. God, I hate even saying his name, but he made me feel wanted in ways that I thought had disappeared from our marriage. She paused, desperation leaking into her voice. It was selfish, stupid. I messed up, and I've paid for it every day since. The worst part is knowing how much I hurt you. For a moment, I just stared at her. Then I said flatly, "You don't get it. What you did, it destroyed the man I was. I can't get him back." She blinked back tears. "If you never forgive me, I understand. But you deserve peace, Daniel. Walking around with this hate inside you will kill you." "Don't lecture me." I interrupted, voice low. "Don't you dare." She opened her mouth, then closed it, trembling. Her gaze shifted to the parking lot, probably aware that passers-by could see us. I heard footsteps behind me, some of the gym staff leaving. I didn't want an audience for this, so I jerked my head, indicating we should move somewhere else. We ended up around the corner of the building, near a row of trees. I crossed my arms. "Say what you need to say, then leave me be." She inhaled shakily. "I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago either. When I realized you weren't coming back, that I'd lost you, I started unraveling. Jay left me. My job started feeling meaningless. I ended up seeing a therapist, tried medication for a while. I wrote you letters I never sent. I replayed that morning in my mind so many times I lost count. It crushed me to see how you looked at me. She paused, swallowing. I don't blame you if you hate me forever, but I need you to know I regret it. I regret it more than anything in my life. I stared at the ground. Leaves scattered around our feet. The wind rustled overhead. Finally, I said, regret doesn't erase memory. She nodded slowly. I know. Silence. People walked past on the sidewalk beyond the trees, oblivious to the tension that crackled between us. I felt that old spark of pain flaring into anger. My voice turned quieter, but harsher, as I said, you shattered my pride as a man. You turned me into a ghost in my own house. You let him sneak out my back door wearing just socks. I'll never forget the sight of him. And you, God, you wore that shirt I gave you, like it meant nothing. I forced my gaze up to meet hers. That's the part that burns. That you took something sacred between us and cheapened it. You don't just bounce back from that. She winced, tears slipping down her cheeks. I understand. I had no pity left. I want you to vanish, Madison. Let me get on with my life. If you want forgiveness, go pray somewhere. Don't come to me. Her shoulders slumped, heartbreak etched into every line of her face. All right. I won't bother you again. She turned, took a few steps away, then hesitated. But if you ever change your mind, if you need to talk, I'll be here. I have nowhere else to go. I clenched my jaw, not trusting myself to respond. She walked off, disappearing behind a row of parked cars. I stayed there under those trees for a long moment, fists clenched, breathing hard. Then I cursed under my breath and tried to push it all down, that roiling storm of anger and heartbreak. I thought that was the end of it, that I'd told her to stay away, and she would. But part of me realized she wasn't the type to give up easily. The next day, I found an envelope slipped under the door of my temporary apartment. Inside was a single sheet of paper in her handwriting. I know you don't owe me anything, but there's something I need to return to you. Please come to the backyard tonight, around 10. If you choose not to, I'll understand. No signature, but I knew who it was from. My first instinct was to rip it up, toss it, forget it. But curiosity gnawed at me. She had something to return. The only significant item that came to mind was the ring, though part of me suspected it was a trap for another emotional confrontation. I spent the day in a haze, training a client, going through the motions of teaching proper running form. My mind wasn't there. I kept picturing that backyard, the memory of seeing him dash across the grass, the humiliation of that moment. Then I imagined how it might feel to stand there again. Would I freeze up? Would I lash out? By the time night fell, I was restless, couldn't focus, couldn't read or watch TV. So at 9:45, I pulled on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and drove to my old street. The hour was late, and the houses were dark, only a few porch lights casting pale glows on the sidewalks. I parked in the same spot as before, walked down the block, heart throbbing with adrenaline. The backyard gate was unlocked. I stepped inside. The yard was dim, just a faint spill of light from a window. The grass was patchy, the fence a little crooked, and in the center of it stood Madison, arms folded around herself, wearing a jacket over her clothes. Her breath made soft clouds in the chilly air. She turned when she heard the gate. A mixture of relief and apprehension passed over her face. You came. I closed the gate behind me. Why am I here? She reached into her jacket pocket. I found this. You left it behind when you disappeared. She pulled out a thin silver bracelet. I recognized it instantly. The one she'd given me one Christmas, with a tiny inscription on the inside. Underscored and M. Always underscore. She held it out, hand trembling. I realized you never took it with you. You used to wear it daily. Then one day you stopped. I thought maybe you'd want it back now. I stared at the bracelet, uncertain how to react. Part of me wanted to fling it across the yard. Another part felt a sharp stab of nostalgia. I finally reached out, took it from her. The metal felt cool against my palm. Memories flooded in. That Christmas morning, her excitement as I unwrapped it, the kiss we shared by the tree, a life that felt centuries away. I swallowed. Thanks. She bowed her head, arms hugging herself more tightly. I know it won't fix anything, but I didn't want it lying around here, as if it was meaningless. I rolled the bracelet between my fingers, forcing my voice steady. You said you had something to return. Is that it? She nodded. Yes. That's all. We stood in silence, the night pressing in. Our breath mingled in the cold air. I tried to think of something to say, maybe a casual goodbye, or a snide remark, but my mind was blank. Instead, what came out was an unexpected question. Do you still think about that morning? She exhaled shakily. Every day. It's like a curse that won't go away. I looked around, noticing how the wooden boards of the fence were warped. My eyes landed on the exact spot where I'd seen him running. In a flash, I pictured it all over again. His bare feet in socks, his wide-eyed expression, and my own stunned realization. Madison spoke softly. It was never about you not being enough. You have to know that. It was me, chasing excitement, chasing something I thought I'd lost. Don't. I cut her off, a bitter taste in my mouth. Don't sugarcoat it. You brought him here, to our bed. She flinched. Yes, I clenched my jaw. This yard. I used to think of it as our future. We talked about building a swing set here if we had a kid. Remember? She closed her eyes, tears glistening. I remember. A wave of fury slammed into me, overshadowing the sorrow. You shattered that future. Her mouth quivered. I know. For a moment, I imagined tearing down the entire fence, ripping everything apart. But instead, I took a breath. There was a numbness beneath the rage, a sense of finality creeping over me. I turned away, walked a few steps. Madison spoke again, voice almost inaudible. Did you ever see him? After that morning. I stilled. My mind flicked to the possibility of confrontation. I'd fantasized about beating the crap out of him, or at least spitting some vile curse in his face. But no, we never crossed paths. No, I said. And you said he left you. She nodded. He was never planning to stay. It was just a fling for him. He got bored and moved on. A cold satisfaction stirred inside me. If that was her punishment, maybe it fit the crime. Good, I said. Hope it hurt. She released a strangled laugh, tears on her cheeks. You have no idea. Silence fell between us again. This time, I let it settle. I looked up at the sky, stars faint against the glow of city lights, the hamper of cars passing on a distant street. Then I turned to her, finally letting the last of my self-imposed calm slip. I needed revenge, you know, I said softly. For the longest time, I pictured every scenario. Hurting him, hurting you, making you both pay. But the real revenge is realizing you're living in your own private hell. You destroyed your marriage, your own sense of peace. You're stuck with the memory of betraying the only person who actually gave a damn about you. That's your sentence. She swallowed convulsively. Her eyes seemed almost hollow. I wake up every morning wishing I could undo it. That's not an exaggeration. Something inside me twisted. The older version of me might have comforted her. Not anymore. I forced a scornful snort. Well, I guess we both got what we deserved then. She wiped her cheeks. You didn't deserve any of this. That's not what I meant. I deserved to learn the truth. I deserved to see who you really were. A heavy ache settled in my chest. It felt like a final unraveling, the last thread binding me to the man I used to be. Slowly, I reached out and set the bracelet on a nearby ledge. I appreciate the gesture, but I don't want it. Her eyes widened. But I'd rather leave that part of me in the past. If you want to keep it as a reminder, go ahead. If you want to trash it, that's your choice. I'm done letting you define me. She choked on a sob. Daniel, I never wanted to define you. Enough. My voice was calm, but it held a final edge. I'm leaving now. Don't try to contact me again. If you see me in town, pretend you don't know me. Because the man you betrayed is gone. The new one has no interest in picking up your phone calls. She let out a trembling breath, tears streaming. But she nodded. All right, she whispered. If that's what you want. I stared at her for a moment, memorizing this final image. The unknown woman in my old backyard, wearing a jacket in the chill, eyes full of regret, overshadowed by moonlight. Then I walked away. On the other side of the gate, stepping onto the sidewalk, I felt a strange sensation, like a weight lifted from my shoulders. Not entirely, but enough to notice. I still carried the pain, but it was muted, replaced by a cold acceptance. The memory of their betrayal wasn't vanishing, but I no longer needed an apology or an explanation. I had all the closure I was ever going to get. I focused on my training job in the weeks that followed. Pushed my body harder than I had in years, clocking miles in the early morning, then pushing corporate executives to improve their stamina. I kept my phone on silent, ignoring every unknown caller. If she tried reaching me, I didn't know about it, and I didn't care. One afternoon, while leading a group run through a nearby park, I got an odd sense of being watched. I glanced over my shoulder, and for just a split second, thought I saw a figure in a baseball cap, hanging back behind some trees. My heart lurched. Was it him? Jay? The man who destroyed my marriage? Or was I just paranoid? I said nothing, kept running, eyes fixed on the path. But after the session ended, I looped around that section of the park, scanning for any sign of the figure. No one was there. My pulse settled. Maybe it was a random stranger. Maybe it was a ghost from my own imagination. Either way, I realized that facing him might still stir up something violent in me. I tried to brush it off. But that night, as I left the gym, I spotted a shape leaning against a lamppost at the far corner of the lot. Male, tall, wearing a jacket with a hood up. The figure made no move toward me, but my instincts flared. I'm not a paranoid man by nature, but after everything, I'd learned to trust my gut. I squared my shoulders, approached carefully, but by the time I got within 100 feet, the figure walked off, disappearing behind a line of parked cars. A prickling sense of unease followed me home. Could it be Jay? Why would he care? He supposedly left Madison a year ago. Perhaps he wanted to see me, to talk, gloat, or who knows what. Rage simmered in my chest at the thought. I told myself it didn't matter. But that night, I barely slept, my nerves on edge. I remembered the date I saw him in my yard. I remembered how I'd fantasized about confrontation, about how satisfying it'd be to punch him until my knuckles bled. In the early hours, I forced myself to go for a run. The cold air battered my lungs, the sidewalks shining with leftover rain. My feet pounded the pavement until my mind quieted. That's what running did for me. Anesthetized my thoughts. Let me breathe. The confrontation I dreaded, and maybe secretly craved, happened the next week. I was leaving a coffee shop downtown, sipping a black coffee, when I saw him across the street, leaning against a building, phone in hand, that same posture I remembered from his silhouette. I recognized his face in the passing headlights. Jason J. McAllister. The man who dashed through my backyard with no shoes on, who took my wife in my own bed. He seemed older than I remembered, though still cocky in his stance. Our eyes met. A surge of adrenaline exploded inside me. My breath caught in my throat, and for a second, we both just froze. He stared back, then gave a small, nervous nod, like he was acknowledging me, but not sure how I'd respond. I stepped off the curb, crossing the street. Cars honked, brakes squealed, but I didn't care. I half-jogged to him, fists clenched. He pushed off the building, raising his hands, palms out. Hey, man, easy, he said quickly. I'm not looking for a fight. My voice trembled with anger. Really? You've been lurking around following me. He blinked. Following you? No. I just got back to Denver a couple days ago. I heard from a mutual contact that you might be around. I was curious if you'd. Curious. You destroyed my marriage, you son of a bitch. My coffee cup shook in my hand. He lifted his chin, though tension rippled through him. Look, I'm not proud of what happened. Madison and I. It was a mistake, okay? But that was 3 years ago. I'm not trying to stir up trouble. I set the coffee on a nearby newspaper dispenser, freeing my hands. You sure? Because your face is stirring up plenty. He swallowed, taking a step back. I get it. You hate me. That's fair, but I'm not chasing you down. I spotted you by coincidence. I was going to leave, but you ran straight at me. My fists clenched. Part of me wanted to break his nose, to see him bleeding in the gutter. A savage voice inside me snarled, "Do it." This is the coward who took everything from you. But another part of me felt empty. What good would it do, beating him up in the street? Would it rewrite the past? Bring me peace? Probably not. I exhaled, forcing some measure of control. So you say you're not proud. Why'd you do it? He glanced around, obviously uncomfortable with the public setting. Man, it just happened. I was messing around, hooking up with her. I knew she was married, but I didn't care enough, I guess. We started in a bar. She was flirting. It got serious. She said you two were having issues. I didn't ask questions. I was an idiot. A selfish jerk. He shrugged, a bitter twist to his mouth. It's not like she was forced. You know, she was into it. But it wasn't love, just an affair. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. Stop talking. He shut his mouth. A car sped by, headlights sliding across our faces. My heart thundered, but the rage was simmering now, not boiling over. The humiliation I'd felt was replaced by a cold disgust. Look, he said, I'm sorry. For what it's worth. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I wasn't planning on you finding out the way you did. Or at all, honestly. I gave a mirthless laugh. You're sorry I found out. You're sorry you got caught. That's not the same as being sorry you did it in the first place. He frowned, glancing down. Maybe. Still, if I could take it back, I would. I studied him, searching for any sign of sincerity. He shifted uneasily under my gaze, but he didn't flinch or run. My fists loosened. Strange how anticlimactic it felt to stand here, face to face with the man who upended my life. There was no grand confrontation, no dramatic fistfight. Just two guys on a sidewalk, separated by guilt and betrayal. Don't ever approach me again, I said. Or Madison. Understand. Trust me, he muttered. I have no intention of going near her, or you. I turned, picking up my coffee, stepping away. A wave of relief and disappointment mingled in me. I'd fantasized about punching him, about retribution. But in reality, beating him senseless might have gotten me arrested, cost me my job, or forced me to stay tangled in this mess. Letting go was harder. But maybe it was the only way to truly move on. He called after me, voice subdued. For what it's worth. I do hope you find some peace. I walked away without replying. I finished my contract in Denver 2 weeks later. With each day, I felt the city's hold on me weaken. My old ghosts receded further into memory. I poured my energy into training, into running. I kept a mental countdown for when I'd be free to leave, to vanish from this place one more time. Only this time, I planned to leave on my own terms, not in shame, but with a sense of closure. Before I drove out of town, I had one last piece of unfinished business. I visited the county clerk's office. I'd never filed for divorce. For 3 years, I drifted in a strange limbo, refusing to see or speak to her, but not making it official. My pain had been so raw that finalizing anything felt too real. Now, it was time. I signed the documents, scheduled them for service. It felt like severing a dead limb. Painful, but necessary. When I walked back to my car, a weight lifted off my chest. The possibility of a new life, one entirely my own, suddenly felt within reach. That night, I packed my belongings from the apartment, loaded them into my trunk, and paused by the driver's seat. I stared at the dark sky overhead, the city lights reflecting off distant clouds. In that moment, I thought about what Madison might be doing, how she would react when she got the papers. Maybe she'd cry. Maybe she'd feel relief. Maybe she'd realize the last thread that tied us together was gone. I opened the car door and froze. Lying on the seat was an envelope. Another one. I swore under my breath. Had she snuck in while I was returning my keys to the landlord? This was getting ridiculous. But with a resigned sigh, I tore the envelope open. Inside was a single piece of notepaper and a small item taped to it. The silver bracelet. The one she'd tried to give me. The note read, _ I'm letting you go. This was always yours. If you want it destroyed, you can do it yourself. Take care, Daniel, _ no signature. Just those words, and that bracelet. I stared at the note, uncertain whether to curse or laugh. Then I carefully tore the bracelet off the paper and held it in my hand. The tiny inscription on the inside glinted under the overhead light. _ D and M. Always _ such a bitter irony. I slipped it into the glove box without looking at it again. Then I started the engine, pressed down on the gas, and left Denver behind. 18 hours of driving later, I was far from Colorado. The open roads and swirling desert winds helped to clear my mind. I stopped at a small motel in Utah. In a plain, dim-lit room with an aging television set, I tossed my duffel bag on the floor and collapsed on the bed. My phone buzzed with messages from new clients, from a buddy in Montana. But I ignored them for a while, just stared at the ceiling. Everything felt quiet inside me now, as if the storm had passed. The humiliation I once felt so acutely had dulled. I remembered my old dream of building a family, of hearing laughter in that backyard, of waking up to the smell of coffee brewed by the woman I loved. All that was gone, but I wasn't destroyed. I was still here, breathing, my heart beating. A strange, calm acceptance. I must have drifted to sleep. I dreamed of wide roads, empty fields, the sun warm on my face. In the dream, I was running again. But this time, I wasn't running from something. I was just running. For the first time, it felt pure, like an expression of who I had become. When I woke, there was a dryness in my throat, a sense of finality in my chest. The clock read 3 a.m. I sat up, rummaged through my bag for a bottle of water, took a long drink, and let out a trembling breath. I thought about what tomorrow might bring. The future was unknown, but that was all right, because I wasn't the same naive man I was 3 years ago. I had new scars, new regrets. Yet I also had a new resilience, forged in betrayal's fire. I realized I hadn't cried since that morning with the oatmeal. Not once. Maybe that was healthy, maybe not. But it was a fact. My tears dried up the moment I saw him in my yard. Ever since, I've been locked in a quiet freeze, a coldness that replaced heartbreak. That, too, was an emotion. A shield, if nothing else. The next day, I resumed my journey, heading toward the coast. I had no set destination, just a vague notion to see the Pacific again. Something about the endless waves always calmed me. I thought about the ring I left behind, the papers that would soon arrive at Madison's doorstep, the silver bracelet now resting in my glove box. Fragments of a shattered life. The sun was high when I reached a scenic overlook. I pulled over, got out, inhaled the crisp air. The ocean stretched on the horizon, shimmering in midday light. My chest felt tight, but it wasn't painful. It was more like the end of a long battle. I closed my eyes, felt the breeze brush my face. In my mind, I saw her face one last time. Tears dripping, wearing my old socks in the backyard. I heard him, his half-assed apology. I felt my own rage swirling. Then I imagined letting it all slip away, like a handful of sand falling between my fingers. Maybe that's the best revenge after all, refusing to let them define me any longer. I whispered to the wind, "Goodbye," though I wasn't sure whom I was addressing. Her, him, or the man I used to be. Maybe all of them. Then I turned, got back in the car, and drove on. The road opened ahead, promising miles of possibility. For the first time since it all began, I felt genuinely free. And if there was a ghost of a smile on my lips, it was real. Because I realized I could stop running any time I wanted now, and I would still be me, whole enough to live on. And that was enough. That was my final revenge. And it felt like victory.